All right, I'm starting the live stream. I wish everybody a lot of fun today. Thank you for all the amazing collaboration. And yeah, over to you, Amanda, maybe for the last word.
Yeah, we're really excited to start. I'm hoping maybe we can just hear if Yasmin is ready before we start. Ace, I don't know if you have
Yes,
anything.
hi everyone. I just added to the chat. Yasmin is ready. She's on standby, and you can pull her out of the meeting room. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, I think we can get started. Just to say really quickly, hi Yasmin, thank you so much for joining us on the session.
Hello, all of you. Hello, Amanda. Hello, Katja. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes,
and I'm
of
sorry I
course.
couldn't do the prep meeting because I had a cold, so I have a lot of catching up to do, but I'm great to be here now.
That's exciting. We're so excited to have you. All right, so let's get started. Let's let everyone into the session.
Oh.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to our session. We're going to pass to our first speaker, Divya Sharma, to get us started.
Hello and welcome, everyone. I am Divya Sharma, a 24-year-old disability rights advocate, social impact consultant, and one of the youth council members at Learning Planet Institute. I am truly honored to join you all for the opening of the Learning Planet Festival. This annual global event is about celebrating learning, sustainability, and collaboration. With worldwide online access, we've brought to you an assortment of decentralized events organized with hundreds of partners around the world, which shall continue for the next 3 days. There are workshops and hackathons on education, climate action, artificial intelligence, peace, and much, much more. Conferences, masterclasses, and roundtables about community action, school development, collaborative learning, and activism as well. Revolving around quality education, the festival corresponds with the observance of International Education Day, which is on January 24th. I am from India, and many parts of my vast country are extremely educationally deprived. And hence, I and other youth fellows and members, especially from underrepresented countries, take pride in being connected with the Learning Planet initiative because it strives to provide a platform to showcase and celebrate the projects and the achievements of the community worldwide. I was one of the previous year's finalists of the Learning Planet Youth Design Challenge, which is a global initiative encouraging young individuals to pitch their ideas for innovative learning programs for their dream university. I had developed an initiative called Handy Mappers, an intersectional learning program dedicated to navigating disability inclusion and access in different areas of our daily lives, such as education, employment, family and social relationships, and technology. With a combination of activities, theoretical knowledge, games, and media and film analysis, we aim to facilitate an unprejudiced understanding of disability in the world. It was truly an honor and an insightful experience to have received recognition and mentorship from Learning Planet to build my project and drive disability inclusion and representation. I would love to connect with anyone who would like to get involved or learn more about the progress of Handy Mappers and disability justice. And you can find my project page on the Learning Planet website, or you can directly connect with me on LinkedIn. I'll also share the links in the chat. It is truly wonderful to have such a community to stay connected and guide one another. And co-creating better futures together is what the Learning Planet Festival embodies. And we're all very excited to be here and nurture the spirit together with our esteemed speakers today. Now, over to the founder of Learning Planet Institute, Francois. What excites you about the festival this year?
Hearing young people like you excites me too. Yeah, it's wonderful to see your energy and to see so many people from all over the world joining together. I think this is a very important moment. We are just after the United Nations Pact for the Future that says that from now on, we should not take any decisions, neither at national or international level, that does not take into account next generation's perspective. The big challenge is, how do we hear those voices? Everyone, especially among the adults, should change perspective and start conversations. I think the UN Secretary General said it very nicely a couple of years ago during the Transforming Education Summit at UNGA, UN General Assembly. He basically said there's 4 ways to interact with youth. The first is to ignore them. The second is to pretend to listen. And he said UN and many other organizations have done this for much too long. And the third, according to him, is to have a dialogue with youth. But I think that what he said is truly needed is to co-construct the future. And so, that's what the Pact of the Future invites us to do. And, that's what Learning Planet Festival is a space where we can have this conversation to start co-constructing the future together. The design challenge, where you've been so successful, is another way of doing it. And we're looking forward to announce the next generations of winners. But we are really passionate about the ability to make a difference and co-design that future together, because we today can use AI to do this at unprecedented scales. So lots of people see AI as scary, and it can be scary if it's not used ethically. But if it's used to mobilize the collective intelligence and use voices all over the world and bring those voices all the way to the United Nations by, for instance, helping to reinvent Model UN so that it's really an exercise to remodel UN, I think it can make a big difference. If we use AI wisely and make AIs ever wiser and make humans ever wiser, then, we have some hope for the future. But, with our current craziness, if we use technology to make it worse, that's not going to happen. So we really have to, but I think, Sting said it very nicely. Russians love their children too. That was a song in the 80s. And I think everyone loves their children and everyone wants the best for them. So if everyone, adults and young people, co-construct the future together, then we can make a difference. So that's what I hope the festival will take that one step further, like it did in the past and it will do in the future. So thanks so much for this. And I think it's time now to listen to our friends from UNESCO that basically share a very similar perspective.
Thank you so much, Divya and Francois. We're now going to hear a video message from Stefania Giannini, UNESCO Assistant Director General for Education.
Please, we cannot hear it, Amanda. Can you try to see?
Where we don't hear it. I think we are all the same problem. I love Stefania, so I could try to speak for her, but I wouldn't want to do this. I'll be on stage with her very soon for the UNESCO leading meetings on AI in the future of education. So I hope the technology works, and just interrupt me when it does. In the meantime, I can just pretend to entertain you.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, as we approach the International Day of Education, we celebrate the great progress made toward ensuring quality education and lifelong learning for all, and reflect on the significant work still ahead. Education transforms societies. It connects communities, strengthens shared understanding, and lays the foundation for peace and sustainability. Yet too many are still excluded, whether due to conflict, to climate change, or systemic inequities. Addressing all these challenges requires bold ideas, collective action, and a renewed determination to reimagine education systems that actually serve the common good. As we navigate a rapidly changing world, education must equip learners not only with knowledge, but also with the values, skills, and mindset needed to tackle the challenges of our time. This means fostering social and emotional skills and critical thinking. It also means prioritizing equity and inclusion, ensuring that no one left behind, regardless of their circumstances. At the same time, we must continue to advocate for increased investment in education. It's imperative to do that. And this remains the most effective tool we have to build a brighter future, as we all know. I salute the young reporters for the environment and all of you for your commitment to education that unlocks potential, that empowers communities, and creates a more peaceful, just, and sustainable future.
So we're really, really grateful to have that video message and be here as part of the Learning Planet Festival with all of our partners. And just to give us just an overview of the session today as we head in to hear from our guest speakers. This session in partnership with the Learning Planet Festival is also hosted by the UN Sustainable Development Solutions Network as part of our UN at Your Doorstep program. Next slide, please. This is a part of the Ages of Globalization course by Professor Jeffrey Sachs, and UN at Your Doorstep is a series of speakers where we're going to be bringing world leaders and officials to young people to be able to discuss global challenges and really think about how we can really take action for the biggest challenges of our time. Next slide, please. As you can see, we've had a series of speakers so far and a series of speakers planned for 2025, and we're really excited to continue building these dialogues and momentum and how we can really solve humanity's greatest challenges. Next slide, please. So today we're going to be hearing from two wonderful speakers, the Honorable Yasmin Sharif, who is the Executive Director of the Education Cannot Wait Fund, as well as Aya Mulim, the co-founder of All Girls Code and a PhD candidate at Stanford University. Yasmin Sharif is a lawyer and also has expertise in international humanitarian and human rights law, as well as bringing over 30 years of experience with the United Nations and international NGOs worldwide. Aya, in addition to being the co-founder of All Girls Code, she's also an award-winning researcher, engineer, and education technology designer from Beirut, Lebanon, and she creates accessible technologies to support inclusive education and specifically on engineering for marginalized learners, and is deeply committed to expanding technology literacy worldwide. So before I hand over to them, I just want to go over a bit of housekeeping. Next slide, please. So please mute your microphone unless you're speaking to minimize background noise. Use the chat for questions, enable the subtitles to follow along in this dialogue, and please feel free to turn on your camera if you are comfortable. We'll also have a series of interactive polls, so please have your phones ready to scan the QR codes. If you have any issues, our team will definitely assist you in the chat. So to get us kicked off, please, next slide. I would like to invite the audience to share 2 to 3 keywords that they associate with quality education via an interactive word cloud. So please get out your cell phones and start with this collaborative action brainstorm. You can go to menti.com and put in the code 78978962 and get us started with thinking about this dialogue on quality education. So we'll leave that up there for a few seconds so everyone can access the Mentimeter. Maybe a few more seconds. All right, let's go to the next slide and see some of the results. So far we've received 88 responses, and I'm sure many others are trickling in. What do we think about when we think about quality education? So we have some examples of critical thinking, inclusion, accessibility, innovation, creativity, equality, curriculum, the right to learn. So this really gives us a sense of what everyone is thinking in the room, what youth are thinking about these topics to really inform our discussions as we're going forward today and hearing from our outstanding leaders and activists as we go forward today. So we'll leave that up for a few more seconds. So right after this, I would love to invite both Yasmin and Aya to introduce the global goal of ensuring quality education for all by sharing a concrete example from current world affairs to really illustrate the importance for the audience. So if you each could answer in about 2 minutes, and then we'll hand over to our youth moderators. So first I'll hand it over to Yasmin.
Okay, thank you so very much for having me with you. And it's really an honor for me to join you, you and At the Doorstep. This is one of my favorite subjects. So I'm very excited to be with you, and I'm also very impressed with the work that you are doing. So, when I saw the list here, the 2 to 3 keywords that you associate with the quality education, a quote by Bob Kennedy came to mind. And he once said, and this is a long time ago, he said, if more politicians were poets and more poets were politicians, we would have a different world. And in a way, it shows we need, it's not just a matter of being IQ and passing your exams, but you also need an emotional intelligence. And an emotional intelligence is what brings you empathy. It makes you feel for others, especially if you want to have a governance position. So a good quality education is not how much you can feed a child in terms of facts, but how much you can extract from those inherent potentials of the child by allowing them to come out for the benefit of humanity and the world and the society and themselves, of course. Now, for Education Cannot Wait, we're a global fund based in the UN system, hosted by UNICEF, and we are responsible for 234 million children and adolescents who live in situations of armed conflict. So it's across the Sahel, what we have seen in Gaza, what we see in South Sudan, in Ukraine, Democratic Republic of Congo, Sudan, etc., etc. And also for refugees, and there are the biggest refugee caseload since the Second World War, and children and adolescents and their teachers affected by climate change. And we have invested in over 44 countries, and we work with all major donor governments and all governments of these countries, most of them, around the globe. And we have reached over 10 million children in just a few years. But the big challenge for us is resources. It costs money to provide a quality education. And I'll stop there, and I look forward to listening to others and then come back.
Thank you so much for that response. So we'll hand it over to Aya for a brief 2-minute intro to this topic.
Yeah, thank you, Amanda. I fully echo Yasmin's thoughts. I'm very happy to be here with so many youth today, and it's always important to remember that youth don't choose what family, neighborhood, community, or country they're born into, but they all do deserve equal access to quality education. As we know, quality education is a primary driver for upward social mobility, and it can open up doors and opportunities everywhere. And today, I think quality education is absolutely necessary, especially in ongoing world crises. And here I would touch upon what Yasmin mentioned. So I'm thinking particularly of the Arab world where I'm from. I'm from Lebanon, and Lebanon has welcomed millions of Syrian and Palestinian refugees. And I've had the honor of working with them through All Girls Code, which is the organization that I co-founded, that provides free, again, as Yasmin said, quality education is expensive. So we've tried to offer free programming for youth. And through those interactions, I've always found refugees to be as ambitious and as excellent and as excited to gain the skills that are needed for them to strive and achieve their ambitions. But the issue is there are limited opportunities to access in such cases. And so again, no one willingly chose to be a refugee, and no one chose where they were born. But to plan for a long-term, flourishing personal and professional life, education is key. And I always consider quality education to be future-proofing for youth in our world.
Thank you so much, Aya, for that introduction as well. We're looking forward to getting into the detailed discussion with questions that have been uploaded by youth participants. So I will hand it over to Ellen Dixon, who is a youth representative from UNESCO's SDG for Youth and Student Network, and also to thank UNESCO for this collaboration as well. And Ellen will take us through our first discussion round. So it'd be great if we could see the first discussion question on the slides, and handing it over to you, Ellen.
Thank you very much, Amanda. Warm Pacific greetings from Aotearoa, New Zealand, all the way across the ocean to you and the world at the moment. It's a privilege to be here on the behalf of the SDG for Youth and Student Network, really to partner with the Learning Planet Festival, which is such a wonderful initiative, and also UN at the Doorstep. I'm already very inspired from the things that we're hearing from Yasmin and Aya in this space. So I'm really looking forward to breaking down this next discussion round, particularly when we're very mindful of the fact that 244 million children are currently out of school very much for the reasons that Aya and Yasmin have already mentioned, due to emergency conditions, sometimes mental health situations, physical health situations, and even fiscal and financial troubles due to our current post-pandemic environment. So that's going to build into our question that we have here today. We were going to have a response from Yasmin and Aya concerning this really important topic. Our first question in this discussion round is, how can education help or hinder humanity achieving social inclusion, peace, and environmental sustainability, of which we're going to get a 2.5-minute response, and we are going to start with Aya. Over to you.
Thank you, Ellen. Education can unlock countless opportunities, and I think my favorite characteristic of education is its ripple effect. So I'll focus on science, technology, engineering, and math, or STEM, because that's always been my area. But through All Girls Code, I always used to see how educating one girl and introducing her to coding or building technology meant that eventually she'll make sure that her whole community and her friends also got to learn that as well. So there's this factor of inclusion that always shows up. And, you know, seeing someone who looks like you and has had similar life experiences to yours, again, such as the girls' experiences in All Girls Code, also creates the sense of belonging to a field where you can actually strive and excel. I think, you know, that's why we started All Girls Code. That's, you know, the girls saw women flourish in STEM, and they made sure that their communities knew that too. And through parallel work during my undergraduate and graduate education, I focused on disability inclusion. So I was happy that Divya gave an intro today highlighting disability justice. And I worked on developing tools to support learners with disabilities in engineering education. And so, you know, it's so important that we teach such topics to explain how all our causes and many of human experiences are intersectional globally. So touching upon what you mentioned in terms of environmental justice, to learn about artificial intelligence is to learn about its problematic environmental impact and maintaining, you know, thousands, if not millions, of power-hungry data servers. And also, since you're from New Zealand, Ellen, in learning about science and technology, that's to mention how scientists in the past have also misused and caused harm to Indigenous people. So quality education should definitely center and include diverse human perspectives and experiences to ensure that, you know, as we learn, we also think of how to utilize our education very carefully for the global good.
Fantastic. Thank you for that, Aya. That was wonderful to hear about your work. And it reminds me of the proverb, it takes a village to raise a child, but also in reverse as well with education. When you educate that child, they impact their village. Over to you, Yasmin, for your response.
Thank you very much. Sorry, some things are coming up here in between. Thank you very much to you, Ellen and Aya. And I mean, I agree with everything that you have said, but what I have thought about a lot over the years, and especially over the last year, when you see an increasing number of conflicts, and it's a bit more than just conflicts, because there are really gross violations of international law that we see. And there are times I wonder, but you were an elected official. shouldn't you know about human rights and international law? Shouldn't you know the concept of justice that came out of the ancient Greeks? Or shouldn't you know that of the great civilizations in Iraq and Hammurabi's law that laid the ground for international law? Because if you don't know that, and you don't know the UN Charter, I don't think you're capable of leading us. So I would say, if you want to have a quality education that serves humanity today, that education needs to entail human rights, humanitarian law, the UN Charter, and basic concepts such as justice, the rule of law, impunity. You know, that the basics that we, you know, as I have 2 kids, they're grown up, but like, you can't steal, you can't lie. I mean, these are the basics we teach our children, but I think every human being today needs to understand that these are the concepts and values and principles that we need to live in a peaceful coexistence for all of humanity. The principle of non-discrimination, tolerance, and I mean, there's so many other things that make up a quality education. But I think that if you speak about social inclusion and peace and environmental sustainability and humanity, these are core subjects in such curriculum, core subjects, because we cannot afford to have students being graduating, moving on into politics and entrepreneurship and, whatever form of profession as a result of their education, and they simply do not understand the basic values of humanity. So yes.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for that, Yasmin. That was very insightful and reminds us that, in essence, the right to education is also the preservation of so many other human rights.
Yes.
It is that vehicle, in a sense, so that we can pass on our value system, so that when we go into the wider world, we are able to take those knowledges of what it is to be a global citizen into other spaces, what it is to respect each other. So I think that's a very poignant point. Thank you for bringing that up. We will now move to an additional question. These were submitted originally and upvoted by the young people who are attending today. Thank you, everyone who submitted a question. There were so many good ones, but we've unfortunately only been able to ask 2. Our first question is to Yasmin, and it is from an anonymous individual who submitted, and it is, what role does equitable funding play in achieving inclusive education? Over to you, Yasmin.
Thank you very much. And whoever sent that question is an excellent, a very important question for me, leading a fund together with many donors on my team. Funding is our reason for being, raison d'être. I'll give you an example. So we have 234 million children today only who've been left behind and had their education disrupted due to conflicts, other crimes against humanity, refugees, climate change. So 234. Now, the cheapest, the lowest possible cost, if you want to give them education, maybe $120 per child per year. It's still massively unfair, because children in Europe, for instance, each year cost about $11,000 to give them a quality education. But let's say now, since the world is so hugely unfair, let's say we keep it at a minimum. That's $120 per child per year. That will require $200 billion a year to reach these 234 million, over $200 billion, okay? And people will say, but we don't have $200 billion, it's a lot of money. Where are we gonna get that money from? Well, you know how much goes into the war machinery every year, to the military machinery? Over $2 trillion. Just to bomb schools, destroy schools, kill teachers, kill students, kill their mothers. That is what we are paying. Over $2 trillion. And we cannot afford $2 billion to actually provide education. And when I see this happening, again, I try to relate to everything. As like, these people don't even know how to manage a budget. I mean, this is a kitchen table budget, more or less. Unless you are there to make sure that the weapons industry is more important than the future generation. But then you should not, again, you shouldn't be leading, you know, because you are already in your mindset, you're a half criminal. But simply the priorities are so up the walls from what humanity needs, so wrong. And I would say that that is the big, I don't believe that the funding does not exist, as it shows. If we can put over $2 trillion every year into the war machinery, we could actually, if we were really clever, we could take all the $2 trillion and put into education and everything else, and you know, change the world. And you don't need a lot of logic and understanding for that. You need emotional intelligence, and you need some values, and you need some principles. And that's why that must be part of quality education.
Fantastic. Thank you for that really comprehensive overview. I like how you draw it back to the point of emotional intelligence being at the center of everything. I believe it was at the Transforming Education Summit that Francoise brought up earlier, that it's apparently 4% of GDP that most nation states need in order to contribute towards their education budgets. To have a sustainable education system. And a lot of that goes back to that question, how are you budgeting? Do we need to send some of our political figures back to financial literacy school? Maybe they might be advantaged by some of that, I wonder. Thank you very much, Yasmin, for that. We now have our question to Aya from our lovely watchers. This is from Calista in South Africa, who asks you, Aya, how can technology bridge educational gaps for marginalized communities? Over to you.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you, Calista, for your question. I have a take that's often unpopular on this topic. I don't think we need technology to fix everything in education. Maybe also adding to what Yasmin was saying, education should not be for profit. And the issue I see is technology is usually closely associated with profit, and it comes in to make money out of education. So my take is the best use of technology in education could be its minimal use, only when it makes a genuine needed difference that makes all learners feel included. So it's also important to remember that sometimes using technology in the first place could make it harder and more expensive for students to learn in resource-constrained communities, especially in the global south and in areas of crisis. So I can give a very basic example. I volunteer and teach online students in Lebanon, and it's very basic. You know, the internet connection is not stable because there's an electricity crisis in the country. So students cannot have reliable like 1 hour sessions or workshops without like getting thrown out of Zoom. And again, so that disrupts their learning. And then think of all this technology that's again internet dependent and like cutting edge technology dependent. It's not really going to make impact where we're intending for it to be. But at the same time, I will say there are some areas where I'm super excited for using technology, specifically to support learners with disabilities in STEM. Most technology tools and learning apps that we use today were not designed for disabled people. They were designed for fully abled people with sight and vision, with sight and hearing. And so, you know, like thanks to technology, I've been working with the blind community in California, and we've been able to develop the first accessible electronics tool for learners in STEM to learn electronics and engineering. So those are pathways that technology opens up. If technology is designed intentionally for all learners for universal benefit, it was able to help us address ableism, so discrimination based on ability, which is pervasive in how, you know, current conventional technology in education is.
Wonderful. That's fantastic to hear about those very hands-on projects that you are doing, Aya. Universal design, I think, is becoming more of a popular term in the way that we're referencing education in other spaces. But also I like how you brought up the element of ensuring that ed tech really complements education so that we're not being driven simply by a profit-based market within that space, so that we are really thinking about our young people and how they're utilizing these tools in education and giving them the skills that they need for the future, particularly with AI coming in so prominently over the next couple of years. Well, thank you both so much. We've been so privileged to have you here today. I would really invite everyone to give a virtual round of applause for the wonderful Yasmin and Aya who have given their time across to us today. We've been so privileged to have you. So please feel free, use your little emoji, send some love into the chat, and we'll just say thank you very much to you both for being with us.
And thank you,
We're
Ellen,
now
for
moving on
moderating.
to thank you very much. Privilege. We are now moving on to our interactive poll. So I'm going to call on the lovely Juliana to include wonderful screen, and we're going to do some fun interactive tools. So if you have your phone, please do pull it out. Please do scan the code, or if you've got your laptop, you've got a link that you can click there as well or highlight, and we will get into our interactive poll so you can give us some feedback on your thoughts about this session. Juliana, if you want to click over to the next one in the next couple of minutes so that we can move on, and hopefully also someone will put the link into the chat just in case anyone has missed it here now. And we shall then commence onto our first question. So I hope you are ready with your technology. Fantastic. Are we able to move on to the next slide? Thank you very much. Loading, Menti is coming. Okay, if you could design your dream classroom, what would you include to make learning exciting? We have a couple of options here. We have interactive and hands-on activities, outdoor learning experiences, more creative subjects, and advanced technology. And I can already see you guys have been in there. You've been putting some things for your responses online. And we have in number one, interactive and hands-on activities. I can see that a lot of people were very interested in what Aya was saying earlier, the importance of us engaging in the tools that we're doing. Outdoor learning experiences, I think, is quite interesting too, because that's come second. If you're interested, put some things as ideas into the chat as we go along, what you would like to do. What type of outdoor learning experiences have you had? What type of creative subjects have you been involved with? So on to the next one. We'll take a look at what you have to say there. If young people ran education policy in your country, if you were going to be Minister of Education for a day, what would you change first? We've got a number of different options, but our one that's coming out top at the moment is free access to education for all. The importance of education being ongoingly free all the way from kindergarten through to higher education and options in adult education. More mental health and life skills programs to make sure that we are supported within those spaces. And new methods of learning, so less focus on exams. I think that's also known as rote learning models, where we get very focused on just testing students. We don't just want to test students, we also want, as Yasmin was saying, emotional intelligence. How do we engage on the ground? What does that look like? I can see someone's put in the chat, education for all. Exactly, education for all. What does that look like? How do we include everyone? And equal opportunities for marginalized groups, and that goes very much back to what Aya was stating about the importance of including communities such as the disabled community, Indigenous peoples, refugees, various communities, immigrant communities within those spaces, and ensuring that no one gets left behind. And now we are on to our next slide for our next question. Hopefully you've answered this one too. Imagine you are the SDG ambassador for your school. What action would you lead to advance SDG for quality education? And I'm sure Amanda is watching this one closely, being involved with the Global Schools Program, as this is many of the areas of work that they're involved with in this space. So our largest area of inputs is partnering with global organizations to bring new opportunities, creating spaces, I suppose, like this, where we can all talk to each other about the power and importance of education. Our next is organizing community classes for kids who can't afford school. I think that's a really cool one. Round of applause to people who put that one in there. I love your community spirit. Hosting events to teach peers about the SDGs. This is a really fun one. I think it's important that we share the knowledge on sustainable development so that everyone can engage. And we've only got 2 for campaigning for better school facilities. Okay, for those of you who are in WASH, I think we can get that number up there a little bit higher than just 2 people. So let's push for better school facilities, because they make a huge difference, as I was saying earlier, in terms of technology, what people can actually access. And we're on to our last slide, I believe. Thank you very much, Juliana. What skill do you wish your school focused on more to prepare you for the future? There's some interesting ones going on here. We've got some very big topics, but number one is climate and environmental awareness. I think we've seen some of the wonderful work of the likes of Greta Thunberg that happened from 2019 onwards. And I think there's a lot of interest in ensuring that our planet is sustainable for the future. So that's a big one. Second one is public speaking and leadership. How are we preparing young people for the future? As Francoise was saying, how do we get them to speak with people in positions of power? Third, we have financial literacy. I'm into that one. Yes, absolutely. Let's train our future politicians in financial literacy. And the fourth one, coding and tech skills. I would also advocate that we have this one, and I'm sure Aya would too, a little bit higher, given the fact that AI is going to have a really big impact, and we're not just going to see ChatGPT in the future, but some awesome new tools. So there we go. That's some of our responses from you live all across the world. Thank you so much for participating in this process. And yeah, we're really excited to hear your feedback. Thank you, Juliana, for that. I'm now going to move on to introducing our next moderator. I'm very, very privileged to hand over this moderation to Clara Vera, a 14-year-old student and young reporter for the environment from Uberlândia, Minas Gerais, Eco School, Escola de Criança, Brazil. Clara is part of the Eco Committee for her school and a leader in the project The Ocean Starts Here, which focuses on working in streets in the city and reducing litter in those spaces that goes from the countryside and ends up in the ocean. Over to you, Clara. We are looking forward to hearing the next section.
Thank you, Ellen. That was so kind of you. Hi, everyone. I'm so glad to be here. I'm so glad to be part of this amazing event and to be representing my school and also Brazil. So we know that the way of offering quality education changes frequently, and that in the past it was very different than today. And many people served to be able to study, especially women who fought for the right to go to school and study. I would like to ask what lessons from history can guide us in achieving quality education for all learners today. I would like to invite you, Aya, to answer it first, so I hand over to you.
Thank you so much, Clara. Yeah, honestly, quality education for all means being intentional about leaving no one behind. And so one thing I always think of is our need to tell the stories of marginalized people in fields where they were underrepresented throughout history and education. So again, thinking throughout history, women played super important roles in establishing many STEM fields. So Ada Lovelace basically established algorithms in some way. But today we still don't hear those stories often. And if we did, they can definitely support young women in feeling like they belong in such fields. I know this next point, Yasmin will have so many thoughts on, but I also believe in the need to invest a lot in education. In many countries, including Lebanon and in the Arab world, education is not often at the forefront of governmental investment areas and plans. And I think we need to prioritize that, and specifically public and free education, as many were sharing in the poll results. I know sometimes it's because we can't evaluate the outcomes of education directly and might need to wait a few years. But that's the bet that some countries took, like Nordic countries, a few decades ago when, economically the world was tanking, and then years later that paid off, creating productive, flourishing societies. And then last point would be, I really believe in the importance of learning in community to sustain quality education. This means exposure to real lived experiences and ensuring that no fellow student is left behind. It means learning hands-on interactively, which again was brought up in the poll responses. So we really are all invested in each other's success when we're learning in community. And we've learned from painful history around the world how segregation based on race and exclusion based on disability and income levels can all later lead to large discrepancies in the quality of life of young people when they grow up. So quality education means all of us, regardless of our backgrounds and lived experiences and identities. It means that we all learn in a welcoming, supportive environment, the skills that we need to achieve what we strive for.
Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. I appreciate a lot your perspective. I think it was a very good answer. So Aya, I want to ask you one more question. What are the most effective partnerships for advancing SDG 4? This question is from Kurt from Finland.
Sorry, Clara, would you be able to repeat the question?
Of course. What are the most effective partnerships for advancing SDG 4?
Yeah, happy to answer that. I think a lot of community partnerships. I think Yasmin has so much expertise on the politics end and governmental end of how finance could work to elevate such programming and such educational offerings. I think so much similar to the answer that I just gave of how communities can come together to create non-formal educational experiences that still provide the high quality of education that we aim for everyone. So, for example, if we're teaching about accessibility, it might be one thing to teach about that in a classroom versus be integrated with people with disabilities in the community and listen to their needs and organize what we're offering educationally around those. Similarly to if we're covering, history, it's important that we're not only sticking to one narrative of history in a specific area, but also trying to uncover and include the histories of smaller communities that may not be like written in conventional educational curriculum. So I think the often underlooked aspect of partnerships to achieve SDG 4 would be community partnerships that probably do not have some systematic way of going around, but still would achieve as much effect as the more systematized higher level partnerships.
Thank you, Aya. That's such a helpful way to look at it. And I agree so much with you. I have another question for you. It was only two, but I have one more. This question is very big. How can we young people ourselves take a leading role in ensuring that quality education becomes accessible to all, especially in marginalized or crisis-affected areas?
Yeah, Claire, you're so right. This is a big question. So I know a lot of people on the call today are from Brazil, and one of my favorite figures in education is Paulo Freire. And him and his movement, they always emphasized education for social justice and inclusion. And the Freirean movement in education also advocated for critical thinking and dialogue with communities for everyone to flourish. So I have maybe 3 points to answer your question. I always think of starting local, of listening to communities, and of intentionally designing for everyone. So, if you want to make a difference, start local and in your community. My favorite leaders in education are those who listen to the needs of the community first. And I think it's important to offer education based on local needs. Otherwise, we'll just be one other educational organization that comes in with grand plans and global goals that may not translate to the local needs and cultural preferences of learners. I also think so much of designing for everyone, and I mean everyone. So, we won't be designing cutting edge technology for students who are currently in refugee camps, who may not have regular access to internet and power. At the same time, if we're designing a course or a workshop, let's try to think of how can a blind student participate or a student in a wheelchair? And, if the learning experience costs money, are there ways to acquire and offer those resources for free for low-income learners? How can we reduce overstimulation for a learner with an invisible disability? And honestly, even if you don't expect these students to be enrolling or attending in your courses just yet, you'd be raising awareness among your current students to be accommodating and inclusive of other people's experiences, whether they are with you in class or not. So that's usually my approach.
Thank you so much. Yasmin had to rush to another urgent meeting. Thank her for sharing her insights. So thank you so much, Aya, for answering our questions.
Thank you so
Now, mm, now we follow up to the next part where we are going to collaborate in a brainstorming. So please, can you share? Thank you. What actions can young people take to advance access to quality education in their communities, countries, or the world? You can scan the QR code or go on the link to answer that. And I like to share, I'm a Brazilian student, and in my school, we have a project called The Ocean Starts Here, where we paint the street with this phrase to encourage people not to throw garbage on the street because it can lead to the oceans and affect all of us since we are all connected. So this is one example for answering this question.
Thank you so much, Clara. Let's move to the next slide to see the answers and responses. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have some answers already here. Local inactivities. This one is big. Take on a global focus, learning the perspectives of people around the world to therefore gain emotional intelligence. Wow, amazing. This can be done through volunteering. Yes, in my school we use this. I'm a volunteer. Inquire about young people's participation in decision making. Yes. Unfortunately, we don't have enough time to read all the answers. So thank you so much for the opportunity of being here. Thank you, Aya. Thank you, Yasmin, that is not here. Thank you so much for taking some of your time to answer our questions. I enjoyed it a lot. And now I will hand over to Hannah, coordinator of SDG4 Youth and Student Network, for closing the event. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Clara, and good evening, everyone from Paris. My name is Hannah, and I feel very honored and excited to be closing this exciting event today on behalf of UNESCO's Section for SDG for Leadership as the coordinator of the SDG for Youth and Student Network, which is a global network of 170 young education experts from 88 countries. So we also have Ellen Dixon today as part of this network. So big thanks also goes out to the UN SDSN team for organizing these UN at Your Doorstep dialogues and inviting UNESCO and me for the closing remarks today. So thank you so much. Also, I really want to take this time to thank the speakers, especially Yasmin and Aya today, as well as Francois, Divya, Stefania Giannini, and our wonderful moderators, Amanda, Ellen, and Clara today for their really inspiring insights and this enriching discussion that we had today on quality education. Further, I can see we have 255 people in the room today in the Zoom and probably many more on the live stream. So I'd like to thank all the participants for joining the session today and your active engagement via the Menti boards. It was really wonderful to see your thoughts and your experiences on quality education. So I think we can conclude, and you all made very clear today that quality education is really about the equal access for everyone, including every learner in the world, especially in countries in crisis, learners with disabilities, and addressing global challenges such as the climate change and the technology shift, AI, and to really center diverse human perspectives, human rights, and justice. So yeah, really focusing and looking at what humanity and young learners need to tackle need to learn to tackle the global challenges by really coming all together, such as this space, collaborating and community partnerships for collective action and for leaving no one behind. So now I have the privilege moving on to see how young people can actually engage on the global level. And I would like to share with you, actually, so it's the slide before. Thank you. Yeah, I would like to share with you two opportunities for young people today in the room to engage with our SDG4 Youth and Student Network, which is hosted by UNESCO. So first up is our upcoming event for the International Day of Education this Friday, which will happen from 2 to 4 p.m. Paris time, which is fully led by our network members. So for example, our wonderful moderator, Ellen, today is also part of the working group of this event. It's on leading SDG4 together and realizing the Fortaleza Declaration, which is the outcome document from the 2024 Global Education Meeting, which was held in Fortaleza, Brazil last November. So this event is also part of the Learning Planet Festival. It's an online event, and I invite you now to scan the QR code to register and to find more information. It's this Friday from 2 to 4 p.m. Central Eastern Time. And then secondly, which is also very exciting, our cohort has this application process this year. So a new cohort will be selected for 2026 and 2027. So if you are youth here today between 16 and 30 years old and you're engaged in educational topics, we would love to get to know you. So if you're interested to be informed about the upcoming application process, which will already happen this spring, please feel free to send us an email to, we put the email address on the slide. It's sdg4youth@unesco.org. So I will be looking forward to receiving emails if you're interested. So now we can move on to the next slide, because we also invite all of the young people to join the Our Voice, Our Power for the SDGs Social Media Challenge. So also here, I invite you to scan the QR code for more details. And I'm now very excited and happy to introduce to you a young leader who will show you more about the social media challenge, who has been taking over the Ages of Globalization channels. So please welcome Rafael Bastos, who is a 14-year-old student and also young reporter for the environment from Uberlândia, Minas Gerais, and Eco School, Escola de Criança from Brazil, with a passion for environmental issues and creativity. So Rafael, please, the floor is yours.
Hi everyone, I'm Rafael, I'm from Brazil, and I'm here to share some experience that I had by being part of a school with a great quality education. So first of all, I just want to say a huge thanks for the organizers, the speakers, and my school for giving me the opportunity to be part of this amazing event. It's been really cool, full of great information and super interesting discussions. I'm really happy to be here. And I feel really lucky to study at a school that encourages us to think about social and environmental issues. And more than that, to take action. It's also to be in a place that gives students the chance to bring ideas and actually make the difference. So I think it's important to learn about new technologies and take part in projects that help both people and the environment. Last year, my school team worked on some really cool projects, like collecting and reusing electronic waste, composting organic materials, supporting our community with charity bazaars, and visit to nursing homes. And environment projects, like Clara says, the ocean starts here. So studying at a school that truly believes in the power of education has shown how much it can change lives. And after being part of this event, I have realized even more how big of an impact education can have on people. So finally, being part of the Takeoff project was such an amazing experience. Creating and editing videos was so much fun, but also a great challenge for me. So thanks a lot, everyone. The social media takeover, we have some goals because of the time. So we use Canva. I'm really, I think, acclimated with that because I already have take over the social of my school. but it still was a great challenge. So that's it. Thank you a lot, everyone. And I'm listening now.
Thank you so much, Raphael. This is really truly inspiring, and I've been following the social media takeover. So really, a round of applause for Raphael. Really, everyone, please show your love to our young student here. So I believe we have reached the end of our formal part of today's event, and I would like to thank you all again for joining today. And for those who wish to continue exchanging ideas and learning from others, we invite you now to join an optional 20 minutes peer exchange. Please, you can move on to the next slide. Thank you. So how this works, we will randomly assign you in the next 1 or 2 minutes to small breakout rooms where you can connect with peers from different countries, from different regions, and discuss the key takeaways from the session and just share your own perspectives. Please note that this session will be unmoderated, so we kindly encourage you to turn on your camera and your microphones and to really start engaging. So I thank you all again, everyone, and I wish you all the best. Thank you.
Hello.
Thank you, everyone. So for those staying on, you should receive an invitation to a breakout room shortly. And for those not staying for the breakout rooms, we will see you on the next UN at Your Doorstep session. So thank you so much. And if you need assistance with the breakout rooms, please let me or my colleague Katya know and we can assist you. Thank you.